start with the gift shop.
Yeah, we have a launch console from the Gemini missions that launched the Titan missiles.
Okay.
Sitting there, restored.
Cool.
Greeting Earthlings! If you follow the channel, you know that we love vintage space stuff and have been restoring a lot of cool Apollo gear. So while we were on the East Coast after VCF earlier this spring, we naturally flew on down to Florida for a Space Coast visit. Those who have been following the channel will also fondly remember Carl, who was a crucial member of our Apollo Guidance Computer restoration team and made our replica disk key. He has now moved to Florida for a well-earned retirement. But not just any place in Florida. His satellite beach condo has a direct view towards the Cape Canaveral launch pads, so he can watch and hear every single launch. Well done, Carl. Moreover, he is now a restorer and docent at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station Museum. For those not in the know, the Cape has two parts, the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, a military installation, and a much larger civilian part, the Kennedy Space Center, that is owned and operated by NASA. However, the military launch complexes played a major role in US space history. That's where the early missile-derived space rockets, such as the Redstone, Jupiter, Atlas, and Titan, were launched. That's also where all the early manned flights took place, starting with program Mercury and Gemini, right up to the early Apollo flights, including the fateful Apollo 1 launchpad accident. So although it's very close to the iconic civilian NASA installations that we could see in the distance, you can't possibly miss that giant VAB building. It's a part of the Cape that has many restrictions on visitors and photography and is lesser known. But as you will see, it has stunning pieces of historical vintage space equipment. And we'll be able to see this from close up, thanks to Carl, our very special tour guide.
Come on in.
So today Carl is our tour guide to
Yes,
the Cape Canaveral base, whatever it's called.
Space Force base.
Space Force.
Solid rocket sounding rocket is the second stage. So this is the area, about 17,000 acres, with all of our launch complexes along it.
And you just keep going
And then the green part
north.
is NASA. And it's so big it doesn't even fit on the diagram because they have over 300,000 acres.
Mm-hmm.
They're the two pads they use, 39A and B, are up there.
So what's that one?
So this is the launch console for the Titan missiles for Gemini missions. So all of the human ones, this was the launch console.
Gemini was of course the follow-on program to Mercury and the precursor to Apollo. It launched a two-man capsule atop a Titan ICBM converted to a space launcher. The launch rooms were inside reinforced blockhouses right next to the launch pad, and you had to use a periscope through the reinforced roof to look at the rocket itself. Footage from the Gemini launch blockhouse on pad LC-19 is hard to come by, but here's a glimpse. Stick around as we'll get inside some of these blockhouses later.
Well, there's a whole room full of consoles,
Okay.
but this was the
Just one of them.
main status one.
So Mark, this picture shows where this console was.
Yep, in LC-19's blockhouse.
All right, one of many.
Yeah, on the inside there's like just banks and banks of relays and other things in it that would sequence and do.
Process water control. Warning systems control alert. Gina recycle instrument mechanical guidance. Propulsion.
Assembling one.
That's a cool console.
By the way, the place is as full of wildlife as it is full of rockets, including the occasional alligator. But let's make our way to our first pad visit, LC-26, where after many embarrassing failures, the first US satellite was finally launched successfully. But first, a little bit of space history is in order. After the US was stunned by the Soviet Sputnik launch, it had a very embarrassing and very public failure in December 1957 when the Navy Vanguard rocket exploded on the pad. It was attempting to launch a ridiculously small satellite compared to Sputnik, which ended up rolling in the bushes after the rocket exploded.
Here's a life-size replica of the Vanguard satellite. This impressive thing.
Oh, that's the one the rocket exploded and
Yes.
it rolled into the bushes
And beeped on television.
Right.
Flopnik, exactly.
Right.
That's when the US reluctantly turned to von Braun, which had told all along that he could have done it way earlier with his Juno rocket, an evolution of his original V2 and Redstone rockets, if they'd just let him.
And of course, von Braun was saying, I have rockets, I can get you there.
I can do
and
it.
Eisenhower said, no Nazis, no war things, there's no way you're doing this. So he was forbidden to work on it. Sputnik going up there was just, the icing in the cake for that. So he unfortunately had to agree. So the general responsible for the ABMA and von Braun flew to Washington and said, we can get something up in 90 days if you give us the okay.
Oh, you had to agree to von Braun doing it.
Right.
Right.
And he belatedly was proved right when he launched Explorer 1, this time a reasonably sized and capable satellite, in January 1958. Explorer 1 is credited with the discovery of the Van Allen radiation belts. Here are some pictures of the launch. Take a good look inside of the blockhouse, which we are about to enter.
Roger, install your protective tab. AFMTC telemeter calibration tape on. Hold. Telemeter indicates the jet vane 2 is deflected. What do you want to do?
Forget it.
Okay, resume count. 2, 1, fine command. Ignition, maintain. Lift off. Lift off.
Right, so this is one of the firing rooms. Now you can see if you look really closely that this is period-like stuff, but it's not the actual equipment.
What about the consoles? They look really original.
Yeah, the consoles probably are, but again, I can't guarantee
Actually,
authenticity.
I do remember some pictures taken from here. Now I have seen so many movies from
Yes.
here where they count
That's right. all
down,
the
and
movies
actually
they filmed
the one that explodes. There is maybe I'll find the
They
footage
filmed
from
here.
it.
So
Yeah.
this is where von Braun and the general would stand looking down on everything.
Right. I've seen.
Von Braun always liked standing at the window and looking up. As the
Right.
plane went
I've
up.
seen so many pictures from this.
Right.
Now I realize.
So you can see all the copper wire coming in here.
Yeah, this was interesting.
Termination point, all the copper wire from the rocket came in here. Let me turn this off. Hold on. We don't need to listen to this.
Launch music.
So that's the patch panel.
So with each rocket, they calculate how much energy if it blows up and the shrapnel, how much energy that has. And that determines the strength of the blockhouse and how far back you have to be. Kind of a blast radius.
I think this panel of meters is for the telemetry readings. They used to give them a good workout just before launch, resulting in a nice needle dance.
So this is the launch director's console, the most important person here, because they decide when it was time to launch and actually start the rocket going up after all the people around verified that everything was good. So the way they do it is this pair of switches, and they would open. So if you would get the switches ready, Ken, and then the left switch would release liquid oxygen and kerosene and start a not kerosene, alcohol, liquid oxygen and alcohol, and start an igniter. And then they'd look at the flame and make sure it looked like a good flame color. And then they would add the second, which put hydrogen peroxide through the turbo pumps, and up it would go.
So
So
should
can it-
I launch?
So you
Yes.
you just launched a rocket?
Right, and then add the second one. No, hold the first one up and then add the second one at the same.
Wait.
Mark,
Oh, it's launching. Ken, you did it.
How about that?
So That's a pretty simple launch sequence. It seems there were probably more to it than just that, but
And, there's that chain link fence there. That's where the rocket pad was. So it's that close, just 400 feet away.
so they wanted to observe the flame or something to
Yeah,
be that
that
close.
was the Germans always did that. They would know that the combustion was settled down and not unstable if they got a nice.
They like
even
to be
color.
close up with their
Yep,
rockets.
yep. So the second launch we have set up, we have one blowing up. So this one you want to fire it up so we can see this. So typically if I have like a kids and a parent, I'll have the kid do a good launch, and then when the parent sits down, it'll blow up.
You're going to do another one?
There we go.
Oh, that's a famous one.
Juno 2. Yes. That was the Juno 2 right outside.
Oh, is that the one that had the failed potting, where it was not potted?
No potting.
Yes.
This failed launch from a Juno 2 in July 1958 had consequences that are still with us today. The rocket, very similar to the Juno 1 that launched Explorer 1, was to launch NASA S1, a rather ambitious satellite which was later successfully reflown as Explorer 7.
Ready to fire? Telemeter tape on. Telemeter tape on. Alarm mark, it'll be 60 seconds. Automatic rock stopping off. Firing command. Firing command. Fuel start tank pressurized. 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The range safety officer. Watch his hand.
The rocket started cartwheeling immediately after launch and was destroyed by the range safety officer. The blockhouse did its job and nobody was hurt. The cause of the failure was later traced to 2 diodes in a power supply inverter that had come into contact and shorted due to the launch vibrations. This caused the guidance system to lose power. After that incident, all flyable hardware had to be either conformal coated or potted to isolate every component and avoid any accidental shorts.
So it was from here. So that's why you want to pot all your electronics from now on. Redo it. And lose power.
Like termination, blow it up.
Well, that must have been interesting being in this room when that happened. Right. They probably got shaken quite a bit.
Right. So if you look at these windows, it's 3 sections of 15 sheets of glass with inert gas in between them, so it's about that thick.
Yeah, I saw the
section there.
And they had a scale to weigh the rocket on.
Yes,
on the pad.
it's a physical truck scale, so it's a physical beam that goes out, and it's actually sitting on the beam and teetering.
It just seems crazy to weigh your rocket.
Right.
Yeah, but you know how much propellant there's
That's
in there,
exactly
right?
it. And as the liquid oxygen is boiling off and you're losing propellant, you'll know when you reach the point where you have to stop.
Just simple methods, right? And that's the window that protects you from
Yes, this is
Juno
one of the
2.
segments.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the 3 segments going through there.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty thick window.
That happens.
You have a pretty good view of your rocket.
This was
Is this a data recorder or a for programs?
Just data recorder. We've got some
Beautiful.
paper tape over there.
Data processing unit.
Oh, I guess it is punched also.
Yeah, there's a punch tape reader right
Very
there.
important to have a.
So this is super big core rope. And that was for the
Burroughs guidance computer.
computer, which is right there.
Right. This whole room is the Burroughs
Oh,
guidance computer.
the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, the computer is behind you, Mark.
And if you look here, you can see it's discrete transistors.
Woo! That's an impressive beast.
So do you see the discrete transistors in
Yeah, I
here?
saw that.
So where are the transistors? I don't see.
They're mounted. They're
Oh, they're upside down.
Just
Yeah.
They are right here.
no particular cooling either. They were just sort of poked in the hole.
Well, they were probably very happy by the low power consumption of the transistors compared to the tubes.
So it had core for RAM plus those packages. So the core was 256 words.
Power
It
supply,
had 256 words.
256 words
Yeah,
of.
RAM.
Wow. So what was it? So that was for guidance.
Yeah, what this would do is the radars would track the missiles that's going up,
Uh-huh.
and it would send correcting commands to pivot the motor.
Because they didn't have that
accuracy
on
was there,
board,
right.
right? So they.
Right, so when John Glenn got into orbit, this steered him into the right orbit. When all the Gemini ones went up, this steered
Oh.
them into
Do you
orbit.
mind if I turn that on?
No, not at all. Go ahead. That's the Canaveral tourist people I told you about. They do the small vans here.
That's a nice console. For the military, they make bigger bulbs.
Now this is a maintenance console, so it wouldn't have typically been there
Mhm.
in the operational centers.
Here's your table of inputs.
That was nice. We're now walking over to pad LC5 next door, which was the launch site for the first manned Mercury flights of Alan Shepard and Gus Grissom. It still has a Mercury Redstone rocket mock-up on display.
So here's where your astronaut Capcom was sitting talking to Alan Shepard
This is launch pad used for the manned flights.
for just the Mercury Redstone one. So that's the first two suborbitals. So Alan Shepard and then Gus Grissom.
For the very first ones.
Right.
Wow. It was actually a Redstone launch pad that they modified for manned flight. Right? So it looks very much like a modernized version of the one we just saw.
Right.
There's a.
Did you get a shot out the window? You get the rocket.
Oh, there you go. There it is.
You get the
Whee!
rocket in the console.
You can see the top right there. Very, very close.
And here is Alan Shepard's Mercury Redstone rocket launching from LC5, standing right outside where we just saw the rocket mock-up.
Liftoff. All right, liftoff, and the clock is started.
Firing command. You see that red?
With a big arrow out of it.
Yeah. In case you couldn't remember, where's the fire button again?
Yeah, this is exactly just like 18.
Astronaut body function. Those paper recorders are so nice.
Here's your HP electronic counter.
Yeah. Ready? Oh, an HP oscilloscope. Oh yeah, this. Okay, these are the amplifiers for a recorder that I don't see. The recorder has left the station.
Well, I'm sure it's somewhere here.
Yep, we found the recorders just around the corner.
The scales, they love those scales.
Well, I know.
I like the VZ recorder. Haberland, I suppose that's for the
WWV.
yeah the clock signal. So it gets the 10 megahertz from the cesium clock from somewhere. Run at NIST.
And here's the countdown clock driven by telephone rotary steppers. Look, Mom, no computer would be proud.
I just call them stepping switches.
The steppers. Yeah, they make good clocks. And more paper tape. Plenty of the program device. It's all paper tape. Little holes. Here's audio. Vision. Another good HP. Oh, that's a telemetry. This is not audio. They have all the subcarriers. 22 kilohertz, 40 kilohertz, 70 kilohertz, 14 kilohertz. Yeah, they have also each of one is one telemetry signal on the subcarrier, and then it goes is recorded by the tape.
And here you can select your subcarrier.
Yeah. Radio frequencies. This is the radio part thereof, and that's where the telemetry results go.
Drill it out on the top and get your keys back there. Alright, gentlemen. See y'all later. I'm getting.
And that's the guidance control. That's what it says on top, it says guidance. Guidance system.
But before they flew people, they flew monkeys, and for that they fit them in a special carrier. They had lights and levers, and the monkeys were trained to move the levers in response to the lights. The whole thing was to check if the monkeys were still able to do conscious work in acceleration and weightlessness. The monkeys were then locked up in their carrier in a way that would make animal activists shiver. But they performed very well and moved their levers despite the dreadful conditions. The most famous of them is Ham, who went up on Mercury Redstone 2 right before Shepard. And off he goes into the capsule. And we have monkey liftoff. Despite reports to the contrary, Ham did not enjoy his flight at all. Look at his heart rate going bananas, pun intended. And things went from bad to worse as the rocket malfunctioned, went into the wrong trajectory higher than predicted, and triggered an abort. The capsule re-entered on the wrong trajectory, subjecting our monkey to a barely survivable 18 Gs and landing him over 120 miles out of immediate reach of the recovery ship. But he was still alive, and this was reported as a great success. But I bet you Ham would beg to differ. Von Braun differed too, and despite immense pressure to do otherwise, refused to launch a fuming Shepard until the problems with the rockets were understood and corrected. They still have the monkey carriers on display.
Then before we put up Glenn on the more powerful Atlas with Centipinos, same idea. He went several orbits, did everything perfectly. Even more ironic because some idiot wired the couch wrong and he kept getting shocks no matter what he did. Sorry?
I thought it was 2 lights, but it's more than
No,
that.
it's a bunch of lights in different directions of the lever, so it was kind of complicated programming for him.
It wasn't easy being a monkey in space.
No.
Let's go inspect our nearby rocket, which I understand is a Redstone fitted with a Mercury boilerplate capsule and would look identical to the original manned flight rocket.
Itsy bitsy flame diverter.
Yep, that's the flame diverter. Wait till you compare that to Apollo 1 flame diverter. See, they have these veins.
And there is more interesting stuff nearby. There is a stage of a semi-modern Delta IV rocket, but there is an even more interesting red structure behind from the Gemini program. That's the White Room, the very top of the protective gantry that surrounded the Titan rocket and was swung in place in its entirety. Here you can see the astronauts leaving the capsule via the White Room during a scrub of Gemini 5. The whole thing is tilted backwards and rolled away before launch. This White Room was originally on pad LC-19 and was moved in 2003 to pad LC-26, which is now the museum part that one can visit. We could not see very much of it, but were very impressed by its size. The Titan was a very large rocket.
So This is the white room for Gemini. It was leaned against the Gemini on the Titan vehicle, and the astronauts would go in through the top into the capsule.
Well, Gemini was small, but the white room was big.
And here's another picture where you get an idea. Oh, I see. They needed the top layer to lower the capsule on. So it would go in the top and then lower down on top of the Titan.
Oh, that was part of the stacking?
Yes, it would stack out here. Is that the bottom part of this?
Yeah, it kind of looks like it.
I think that's the bottom part right there.
There was another large structure nearby, and we were fooled for a second, thinking that it was the rolling platform for the Titan Gemini gantry. But on closer inspection, it's for a much smaller rocket. This is actually the supporting platform of the original LC-26 gantry, the one that we just saw launch the Explorer 1 rocket, and that later survived the Juno 2 explosion. This is how it looked in 1965 while in operation. Note that this is before launch. At launch, it would be rolled back from the rocket. I was surprised to learn that it was manufactured in 1957 by the Noble Company in Oakland, California, very close to where I live. Unlike most other gantries of this period, it was preserved and was on display until the early 2000s, fitted with our Mercury Redstone prop rocket. The Mercury rocket was moved away in 2004 and placed in its current historically correct position on LC5, where we just saw it. The gantry tire was then cut off from the base for a restoration project, which does not seem to have been completed. Remnants of the tire could still be seen lying in the distance. We took a good look around, and it is in poor shape despite the restoration attempt. You can clearly see how the whole thing rolled away on railroad tracks before launch, carrying the entire tower.
Got those belts or something else. Must have been the erection mechanism. Look inside. Oh yes.
What do you see?
It's the grandfather of the crawler.
Huh. It has pivot points right here.
Yeah, for this to pivot upright.
Yeah. You just plug it in and it'll be fine.
Next pad visit was LC-14, the site of the first proper orbital flights. This was done atop an Atlas, a much bigger rocket than the Redstone.
I feel like parking in Giant Glenn's parking space, so let's do that.
Carl got the best parking spot in town.
You're John Glenn?
Yeah.
Rockets are now grown bigger, and the blockhouses had to be built further away from the pad. The blockhouses were now topped with a huge mound of earth for protection, in case the rockets blew up, which of course they did. Glass windows were out of the question, and periscopes piercing through the protective earth mounds were used instead.
So say again, Carl, that there's periscope because?
Well, because the rocket's that much more powerful, if it exploded, they couldn't be protected with glass windows, so they need periscopes so much.
And then they don't have a square shape anymore to resist the blast power.
And there's tons of sand and stuff on top of the concrete here. It's a really
So
engineered structure.
they had to make it tougher. And quite a few lounges from here. Oh yeah, the door is bigger.
Yeah, you know, more powerful rocket, need more protection.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all of the equipment has been removed from this historical blockhouse. This is how it would have looked during the early Atlas test launches. And here is some more footage from John Glenn's first orbital flight.
Gantry is in launch position.
It was created.
ISO now, meter reads 19 volts.
And off goes our Atlas ICBM with explosive tendencies, with astronaut John Glenn on board from the LC-14 pad where we are today.
What are we launching today? So the equipment.
That guy Scott that you met, he restored these models of the Atlas there.
Oh, he did a good job. Do you see anything, Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, spin them around. You can see things.
Yep, you can see nicely.
I don't think there's anything on our pad.
Look at some of them and see what it looked like.
Go higher mag. There we go. There's up and down also. Nope, no rocket there. Can look up. Can look down. Can go sideways. Whew. This is straight out of a submarine. Same optics. And here is the escape tunnel. So if this building collapses or something happen, gets you out. This is what this used to look like, and you can see the ceiling, it matches. And then the square tiles, we still have them over there.
Then we climbed up on the roof, and you can see that we are bracketed by ULA on one side and Blue Origin on the other. But where is SpaceX, you say? Well, just you wait, because we are going to have a SpaceX very special treat at the end of the video. We are now making our way to LC-34 for our biggest rocket yet, the Saturn 1B, which launched the early Apollo test flights, and to pay tribute to Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, who lost their lives in the Apollo 1 pad fire accident on this very launch pad.
This road is driving right up onto the launch pad. So you see it there? That's it.
That's a bit of it.
Saturn 1B was going to be the Apollo 1 and then the Apollo 7 that actually successfully went back, came from here as well. And then after that, they shifted to Saturn 5 land.
So you make a bigger rocket, you need a bigger stand.
Yep. Those are the flame diverters. You see them on the left there?
So those are the flame diverters in question.
You see these way back there onto that pad.
That's the Apollo 1 disaster.
Wide tracks. It's fire brick, not cement.
Oh, on the... Oh, you're right. These are fire-resistant bricks. Of course, here nothing, because it would be the diverters.
Serious end of it.
Yeah, it's a big guy.
It's like a military thing.
And as we turn back and reflect on the many who lost their lives for the conquest of space flight, we are drawn back into the modern rocket world in the distance. Speaking of which, what about a SpaceX launch to cap off our visit?
How close do you want to get to the alligators?
I don't know, I think that sounds fine. There we go, we have a rocket. We'll take off pretty soon. And here we have the ULA. And not very far in this direction There's the VAB. I can't see it.
Watching a rocket launch is a lot of waiting next to an alligator pond, but SpaceX is famous for its routine on-time launches, and this one would be no
But
exception.
they were go for launch. There you go. Wow. It's more impressive in the eyes than on the camera.
Wow, thank you Carl for this extraordinary visit. And I didn't even have time to talk about Hangar C, which is worth an entire episode in itself. It has an incredible display of early rocketry, including all kinds of early nefarious rocket-powered missiles like the Matador, the Beaumark, or my favorite, the Snark and its menacing grinning face. In closing, we leave you with the best Cape Canaveral lounge ever, which is provided free by nature. Behold the Armadillo Lounge. See you in the next episode.
Oh, you can run!